more dangerous than sugar, the food that's silently destroying your heart. Yes, there is an ingredient hidden in your daily diet that could be accelerating the aging of your arteries, increasing your blood pressure and paving the way for serious diseases such as heart attacks and strokes. And the worst part is that it is extremely common. It is on your plate in your fridge, it is part of your routine. You consume it without guilt, without realizing it, but you should see this as a real warning. While many people worry only about sweets and sugar, the real enemy is disguised as something harmless. In this video, you'll learn why so many heart diseases suddenly appear, why your energy may be waning, and how certain innocent foods are actually sabotaging your health from the inside. Are you ready to discover the truth behind the food that has been destroying hearts without anyone noticing? Then watch until the end. Number 16. Bacon. Bacon is a favorite in many parts of the world, but behind its irresistible flavor lies serious dangers for the heart. Rich in saturated fat, it directly contributes to the increase in LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol. This fat accumulates in the arteries, forming plaques that hinder the flow of blood. Over time, this significantly increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. And it doesn't stop there. Bacon is also loaded with sodium, a silent enemy of blood pressure. Excess salt retains fluids in the body, increases blood volume and forces the heart to work harder. This constant effort wears out the cardiovascular system, which can lead to chronic hypertension. Another serious problem is sodium nitrite, a common preservative used in bacon. When heated, it can turn into nitrosamines, carcinogenic compounds that also cause inflammation in blood vessels and accelerate the aging of arteries. The cooking method makes matters worse. Frying or grilling bacon at high temperatures generates inflammatory substances known as advanced glycation end products, AGEs. These compounds hinder cell regeneration and damage the inner walls of your arteries, a direct path to serious heart disease. Have you ever thought about the impact of a simple breakfast choice? Swapping bacon for healthier options like seasoned avocado or sautéed mushrooms can dramatically reduce the inflammatory burden of your diet. These are small changes that have big long-term effects. Behind the smoky flavor and crispiness of bacon are three of the biggest villains for heart health: saturated fat, excess salt, and chemical additives. If you want to preserve your vitality and have a strong heart, it may be time to rethink this choice. Number 15. Hot dog. The famous hot dog may seem practical and tasty, but it is a real bomb for cardiovascular health. This ultra-processed food contains low-quality meats, chemical additives, and high doses of saturated fat. The greatest danger, however, lies in the preservatives, nitrites and nitrates. They are used to add color and extend shelf life, but when they come into contact with stomach acid, they can form carcinogenic substances such as nitrosamines. In addition, these compounds inflame the walls of blood vessels, favoring the accumulation of fatty plaques and increasing the risk of blockages that lead to heart attacks and strokes. Another critical factor is excess sodium. A single hot dog can contain almost your entire daily recommended salt intake. This silently raises your blood pressure and puts a strain on your heart. Have you ever stopped to think about how much salt you consume in a seemingly innocent snack? And there's more. Many versions of industrialized sausages contain trans fat, which raises bad cholesterol, LDL, and reduces good cholesterol, HDL. Even in small quantities, the effect of this fat on the body is cumulative and dangerous for the heart. The good news is that there are healthier alternatives. Grilled tofu, roasted vegetables, or mushrooms can replace sausage without sacrificing flavor. These are choices that preserve your health while still maintaining the pleasure of eating well. Eating hot dogs may seem like a simple thing to do, but the damage they cause is serious. Cutting out or reducing this food from your diet is a smart move to protect your heart. Number 14. Processed cheese. Processed cheese, like industrially made cheddar, may seem like a convenient and tasty option, but it's a trap for your heart health. Unlike natural cheese, it goes through an industrial process that adds coloring, preservatives, emulsifiers, and a huge amount of salt. The biggest problem is saturated fat. This type of fat increases bad cholesterol, favoring the formation of plaques in the arteries and over time, causing atherosclerosis, the hardening and narrowing of the vessels, which hinders blood circulation and increases the risk of heart attack and stroke. Excess salt is also a major culprit. To ensure flavor and durability, processed cheeses are loaded with sodium, which raises blood pressure and promotes fluid retention. This puts the heart under constant stress, impairing its function over the years. Furthermore, chemical additives such as phosphates, stabilizers and flavorings negatively impact metabolism and cause systemic inflammation. This inflammation contributes to the wear and tear of blood vessels and accelerates arterial aging. But it is possible to consume cheese in a safer way. The tip is to opt for less industrialized versions, such as fresh white cheeses, ricotta or even cured cheeses, as long as in moderation. These foods provide calcium and protein without the risks associated with processed foods. Finding a balance between flavor and health is the secret. Choosing consciously is an act of caring for your heart. 12. Fatty barbecue meats. Meats with a lot of fat, so common at barbecues, are among the most dangerous foods for the heart when consumed frequently. The amount of saturated fat present in these cuts is alarming and has a direct impact on the cardiovascular system. This fat quickly turns into LDL cholesterol, the so-called bad cholesterol, which is deposited on the walls of the arteries. Over time, these plaques harden the vessels, hindering blood circulation and requiring more effort from the heart. The result: an increased risk of heart attack, stroke, and atherosclerosis. Furthermore, cooking on hot coals or charcoal favors the formation of inflammatory substances such as heterocyclic amines and aromatic hydrocarbons, compounds that attack cells and the inner lining of blood vessels. This chronic inflammation paves the way for serious heart disease. Another point is that these meats tend to be very high in calories and low in fiber and antioxidants, which contributes to weight gain, obesity, and metabolic syndrome, factors that further increase the risk of hypertension and heart failure. But you can enjoy a good barbecue in a smarter way. Choose lean cuts like rump or sirloin, and cooking methods like roasting or cooking over moderate heat. This way, you preserve the flavor and reduce the risks to your health. 11. Fried chicken with skin. Chicken is a healthy protein on its own. But when it's fried with the skin on, it becomes a real enemy of the heart. Chicken skin is rich in saturated fat, and when fried, it releases inflammatory substances. It's a trap that looks like comfort food. Frying chicken, especially in reused oil, produces toxic compounds such as acrylamides and aldehydes. These substances inflame the lining of blood vessels and impair the elasticity of arteries, which can lead to high blood pressure and heart disease. What's more, that golden crispy crust that's so pleasing to the palate also carries a hidden danger. The Maillard reaction, which gives it that texture, forms products called advanced glycation, which hinder cell regeneration and increase inflammation in the body. Fried chicken with skin is also extremely high in calories and makes it difficult to control your weight. Accumulated fat, especially in the abdominal region, increases insulin resistance and promotes metabolic syndrome, two factors strongly linked to cardiovascular risk. The good news? Simply remove the skin and prepare the chicken by roasting, grilling, or boiling it, preferably with natural seasonings and accompanied by vegetables rich in fiber. You can maintain the flavor without compromising your health. The problem isn't the chicken, it's the way it's prepared. 10. Industrialized French fries. Frozen French fries, sold in packages at supermarkets, are one of the most popular, and also most dangerous, options for your heart. They combine three major villains: trans fat, refined oils, and excess salt. These potatoes are already pre-fried in highly processed, nutrient-poor oils. When fried again at home, these oils degrade even further, releasing toxins and free radicals that inflame the body and damage blood vessels. Trans fats, even in small amounts, reduce good cholesterol, HDL, and increase bad cholesterol, LDL, creating a perfect environment for clogged arteries. What about salt? It comes in very high doses, increasing fluid retention and blood pressure. This puts a strain on the heart and kidneys, and over time, can lead to heart failure or stroke. Want a healthier alternative? Prepare potatoes in the oven, using olive oil and natural seasonings. And it's also worth betting on roots like sweet potatoes or yams, which are rich in nutrients and very tasty. Commercially prepared French fries may seem harmless, but they are a silent bomb for your heart. If you are looking for cardiovascular health, it may be time to replace this habit with a choice that truly nourishes your body. 9. Microwave popcorn. Traditionally made popcorn is a healthy, fiber-rich snack. But the microwave version, with its artificial butter flavor, poses a real risk to your heart. These bags contain substances such as diacetyl, which is associated with inflammation in the body and even lung problems. They are also loaded with sodium, which raises blood pressure and wears out the heart over time. And to make matters worse, they often contain trans fat, which is used to maintain crunchiness and extend shelf life. The problem? This fat negatively alters cholesterol levels and causes clogged arteries. There are also refined oils and artificial flavorings, which cause inflammation in the body, including in the cardiovascular system. Frequent consumption of this industrial popcorn creates an inflammatory environment within the body, which paves the way for several chronic diseases. Want healthy popcorn? Make it in a pan, with a drizzle of olive oil or coconut oil, and season with dried herbs or spices. It's practical, tasty, and much safer. Microwave popcorn may seem like a convenient option, but it has hidden dangers that aren't worth the risk. Taking care of your heart also starts with small, everyday choices. 8.
Instant noodles.
Instant noodles may seem like a practical solution for those who don't want to waste time in the kitchen, but they are one of the biggest enemies of the modern heart. This is because, in addition to being ultra-processed, they contain flavor enhancers, monosodium glutamate, colorings and preservatives that interfere with the body's inflammatory system and compromise the functioning of organs over time. The liver and kidneys, responsible for eliminating toxins, suffer greatly from the continuous consumption of these artificial and industrialized ingredients. Swapping out instant noodles for healthier alternatives is easier than you think. Whole grain pasta, cooked vegetables, quinoa, or even scrambled eggs with vegetables offer convenience without putting your health at risk. They are affordable, quick, and much more nutritious options. The secret is to plan consciously and not be fooled by the false convenience of ultra-processed foods. Instant noodles may seem harmless, but they compromise not only your heart health, but your metabolism as a whole. Remember, the time you save preparing instant food could be lost later on doctor's appointments.
7. Excess salt.
Salt is a fundamental ingredient in cooking, but excessive consumption is one of the biggest enemies of cardiovascular health. In small quantities, it helps with muscle contraction and the balance of body fluids. The problem is that most people consume much more than necessary. This excess causes the body to retain water to balance the sodium in the blood, increasing the volume of circulating fluid and forcing the heart to work harder to pump blood. Over time, this effort overloads the heart and raises blood pressure. Hypertension, in turn, is a direct factor for heart attacks, strokes, and heart failure. The worst part is that salt is hidden in many ultra-processed foods and ready-made seasonings. Sauces, bouillon cubes, sausages, snacks, and even industrialized sweets have absurd amounts of sodium. Often, the problem is not the salt you add, but the salt that comes from the factory, and this makes consumption go unnoticed. Furthermore, salt also participates in silent inflammatory processes. Studies show that it alters the functioning of immune system cells, causing chronic inflammatory reactions that damage the lining of blood vessels, making them more rigid and susceptible to injury. Hardened arteries hinder circulation and increase the risk of cardiovascular disease. Reducing your salt intake doesn't mean losing flavor. Aromatic herbs, garlic, onion, lemon, and spices are great alternatives for seasoning food in a healthy way. Over time, your palate adapts and begins to appreciate natural flavors more. The secret is to re-educate your palate and prioritize fresh, minimally processed foods.
6. Pork rinds.
Pork rinds are a traditional food that is highly appreciated for its strong flavor and crunchy texture, but behind this crunchiness lies a composition that is extremely harmful to the heart. Made with fried pork skin, pork rinds are practically pure saturated fat, with no fiber, antioxidants, or any other beneficial components. It's a real balm for your arteries. When you eat pork rinds, you ingest large amounts of saturated fat, which quickly turns into LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, which is deposited on the walls of blood vessels, causing the narrowing and hardening of the arteries, a process known as atherosclerosis. This paves the way for heart attacks and strokes. Furthermore, frying pork rinds in oil, often reused, makes the situation even worse. The combination of animal fat with oxidized oils generates inflammatory compounds that circulate in the blood and affect the cardiovascular system. This inflammation contributes to the instability of fatty plaques in the arteries, which can rupture and cause fatal blockages. In addition to its direct effects on the heart, pork rinds are very high in calories and promote weight gain. The accumulation of fat, especially in the abdominal region, is linked to increased blood pressure, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome, conditions that significantly increase the risk of serious heart disease. 5. Excess whole milk. Whole milk is an important source of calcium, vitamin D, and protein, but excessive consumption can become a problem for your heart. This is because whole milk is high in saturated fat. Although it is a natural food, too much of this fat in the diet can raise LDL cholesterol levels in the blood, which builds up on the walls of the arteries, reducing their elasticity and promoting the formation of plaques. Over time, these plaques can block blood flow, increasing the risk of cardiovascular events such as heart attack and stroke. Many people use whole milk as a base for various preparations: breakfast, smoothies, desserts, sauces, and repeated consumption throughout the day greatly increases the total intake of saturated fat. Another important point is that whole milk increases the caloric value of the diet, which can lead to gradual weight gain. Accumulated fat, especially in the abdominal region, is a risk factor for hypertension, insulin resistance, and heart disease. Fortunately, there are alternatives. Skimmed or semi-skimmed milk maintains calcium and protein with less saturated fat. You can also opt for plant-based milks, such as almond or oat milk, as long as they are fortified and have no added sugar. Making this simple change already represents a big step towards a healthier heart.
3. Italian sausage.
Grilled Italian sausage or calabresa, may seem like a lighter option because it is not fried, but that is far from making it safe for your heart. The problem is not only in the way it is prepared, but in the composition of this food and the compounds that are formed during cooking at high temperatures. These sausages are processed meats rich in saturated fat, sodium, and chemical additives such as preservatives and flavor enhancers. Even when grilled, they release inflammatory compounds, such as heterocyclic and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, associated with inflammatory processes in the vascular endothelium, the lining of blood vessels. This damage increases the risk of plaque forming in the arteries, a silent danger to your health. In addition to the inflammation caused by cooking, the excess saturated fat in sausage quickly raises LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, which is deposited in the blood vessels, reducing arterial elasticity. Continued accumulation causes atherosclerosis, hindering blood flow and requiring more effort from the heart. Over time, this stress turns into heart disease. Another point to be aware of is the high sodium content. A single sausage can contain up to half of the recommended daily salt intake, which causes fluid retention, raises blood pressure, and overloads the cardiovascular system. Since sausage is usually eaten with other salty foods, such as farofa or seasoned rice, the effect is even more dangerous. But there are ways to keep the pleasure of a tasty meal without hurting your heart. Replacing sausage with lean proteins, like grilled skinless chicken or homemade, naturally seasoned burgers, is a simple and powerful change. This way, you maintain the flavor and convenience without carrying the silent risk of grilled processed meats. Therefore, even when grilled, sausage remains a disguised threat. The heat treatment does not neutralize the risks, it simply hides them under an appetizing aroma. If you value the health of your arteries and want to protect your heart in the long term, it's time to rethink the presence of this food on your plate.
2. Excess butter.
Butter, in small quantities, can be part of a balanced diet. Rich in flavor and of natural origin, it contains fat-soluble vitamins such as A, D, and K2. However, excessive consumption is extremely dangerous for the heart. This is because butter is one of the biggest sources of saturated fat in the daily diet. Each tablespoon has about 7 grams of saturated fat, almost half the recommended daily limit. When consumed in excess, this fat raises LDL cholesterol in the blood, favoring the formation of plaques in the arteries. This process can obstruct the vessels to the point where they can no longer transport blood properly. Additionally, excess butter can increase systemic inflammation, especially when consumed with refined carbohydrates such as white bread and pasta. This inflammation, even if mild and constant, damages the walls of blood vessels. The body tries to repair this damage by forming fatty plaques, in a silent but devastating cycle. Another important point is that butter, when heated too much, oxidizes. Oxidized fat releases free radicals, which damage cells and tissues, including those of the heart. Since butter is often used for frying or sautéing, this exposure to heat increases the damage. What seems harmless, like a grilled sandwich, can hide dangerous cumulative effects. But it is possible to maintain flavor and pleasure without overdoing it. Using butter in moderation, alternating with extra virgin olive oil or exploring healthy vegetable spreads are good strategies. The important thing is to understand that it is not about banning it completely, but about using it wisely and in moderation.
1. Refined coconut oil.
Coconut oil has gained fame in recent years as a superfood, but excessive use can be dangerous, especially for the heart. Although it is a natural product, refined coconut oil is mostly made up of saturated fat. In excess, this fat acts similarly to butter and lard. More than 80% of coconut oil is saturated fat, which makes it one of the oils with the highest density of this type of fat. High consumption increases LDL cholesterol, which builds up in the arteries, forming fatty plaques. Over time, these plaques harden the vessels, hindering circulation and increasing the risk of heart attack, stroke, and hypertension. It's a silent scenario of inflammation in the making. Additionally, refined coconut oil loses beneficial compounds during the industrial process, such as antioxidants and polyphenol. Unlike extra virgin coconut oil, the refined version is heated and solvents are used, which alter its chemical structure. The result is an oil with a high inflammatory potential, without the supposed natural benefits. Many people believe they are making a healthy choice when they use this oil for cooking, sautéing, or even consuming it on its own. However, exceeding the daily limit of saturated fat has devastating effects on the cardiovascular system. Balancing the types of fat in your diet is essential to keeping your heart healthy. This doesn't mean banning coconut oil completely, but using it occasionally, preferably in extra virgin form and in controlled amounts. Alternating with olive oil, avocado oil, or even pure ghee is a way to vary your diet without overloading your body. Refined coconut oil, when consumed in excess, stops being an ally and becomes an enemy, accelerating inflammatory processes, increasing bad cholesterol and compromising heart health. In a world where we choose what to eat every day, understanding limits is essential to living longer and better. Take care of your heart today to ensure a healthier tomorrow. Avoid the hidden dangers of processed and fatty foods, make conscious choices and put your health first. If you want to continue receiving valuable tips to protect your heart and live a better quality of life, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. Here, your well-being is our mission. Let's join us on this journey towards a longer, healthier and happier life.